When it comes to sequels, you really hope that the core gameplay is still there for the game while also improving on the issues that it had. And Crash Bandicoot 2, I was just hoping that it wouldn't be so hard and that the controls were a lot better, because I do think that was what was holding the original back, right? Fast forward to Crash Bandicoot 2 coming out a year later after the first game, and incredible. Now, it is a shame that Naughty Dog was essentially pressured by Universal because they were contracted to make 3 games. Now, I didn't play the sequel straight away. It was actually thanks to my friend who introduced me to Crash Bandicoot 2. I went around his house and I didn't play it, I just watched him play it, but I knew just looking at it, it looked beautiful. The music was great. I could tell by the way he was controlling the game. It's like, oh, this game controls amazingly, especially compared to the first game. My issues with the difficulty weren't there. The game was, you had your challenging moments, but it was clearly a lot more fair, way better level design. This was a sequel. This was a proper improved sequel while still feeling like Crash Bandicoot. Amazing. I could not wait to get my hands on this game and play it for myself.
Let's get the story out of the way, shall we? We continue after the fall of Cortex in Crash 1, where he lands in a cave full of power crystals. These pink jewels can be harnessed as a power source, which gives Cortex an idea. He builds a space station with the help of his new assistant Engine and plans to use the crystals to mind control everyone on the planet, but he needs help retrieving them. Meanwhile, Crash is chilling with his sister? Yeah, we'll talk about that, when her battery goes on our laptop and asks Crash to go find a new battery. Where he's gonna do that in a jungle, I'll never know. Upon exploring though, he is teleported to a room full of portals, and what greets him is none other than Cortex himself. Cortex's brilliant idea is to convince Crash that he's changed, that he wants him to help him save the world by gathering the crystals. Now, Crash isn't the brightest spark, and we basically can't proceed throughout the game without getting the crystals, so I guess we're getting the crystals. That's the story. Cortex definitely hasn't changed. Our sister warns us about him, we ultimately don't give him the crystals, and take him out once again. But this time he has new friends, and Dr. Embryo is against him. There's a bit more intention behind getting 100% in this game, and it is much easier than Crash 1. So since this is a direct sequel and the core game really hasn't drastically changed all that much, I want to go over everything that is new in the second game. Why don't we start with gameplay and controls, since I would say that's the most important part, which mostly makes this game so good. Crash's moveset from before has returned with a couple of new additions. Crash can now crouch and slide by pressing the circle button while moving, which the game will occasionally make use of. You can also turn it into a slide jump if you press X after a slide. The other use for the circle button is the belly flop. Jump and hit the circle button for a slam that takes out enemies and crates, including this new type of crate that can only be broken with a slam. Crash's primary attack is still the spin, but the slide offers some faster and more acrobatic movement, while it also being a method of attack. While the slam is more of a specific move that can be used whenever, but you'll most likely save it for when you need it, as it is quite slow. If you've played Crash 2, you'll notice how improved the controls are compared to the first game. I have much more control. I can make precise jumps much easier. Crash's base speed is a tad faster, and I never feel like slipping unlike the first game. I go back to this game and still feel like the controls are the best they've ever been. Luckily this would carry over to the third game, but once the reins from Naughty Dog were passed on to other companies, they just couldn't replicate the control scheme. As much as I do think the Insane Trilogy, the remake of the old games, is fantastic, I would argue that Crash 2's controls is still unparalleled. The controls alongside the level design makes Crash Bandicoot 2 one of the most fun games on the PS1, let alone the series itself. The only new boxes are these blue and orange ones that only break with slamming. Not even a TNT explosion will break them. Damn, how strong is Crash's belly? Actually, I was wrong. I had completely forgotten about the other new crate to this game, the Nitro, which is basically like TNT, but you can't touch them at all because they will instantly explode. It actually adds an interesting new box hazard because now you've got TNTs that at least give you 3 seconds detonate to kind of warn you. It's like, uh-oh, I better get back. But Nitro, oh no, you can't touch them at all. Otherwise, you are screwed. And there are some sections in this game where they just kind of throw a bunch of them, and it's like, oh boy, kind of wish I had a tiptoe ability, but I guess that's not until Crash the Wrath of Cortex. If you find these green iron boxes with exclamation marks, you can actually hit it and it will detonate all Nitro. Now the thing is, you can't touch Nitro, but they do go towards the box count, so you have to find these exclamation boxes, and they're usually more or less towards the end of the level. But again, Nitro's a cool addition. We do have a box counter on the life HUD, it just doesn't tell us how many we need, only counts what we have. When we get to the end, if we have boxes missing, there's a box hologram that shows you how many are missing. Oh boy, some things never change. So the way the game works, its structure and level design isn't too different from Crash 1. However, this time around, our hub isn't 3 islands. Instead, these closed off circular rooms called a warp room is how we enter levels. A lot more scaled back, I suppose, compared to the islands, but I like it. It's simple in knowing where to go, and they theme the different warp rooms. There's 5 plus a bonus one for going for the 100% route. The best new feature though is the ability to save in the warp room. Yeah, it's not like behind a bonus round or collecting a gem, it's just here in the warp room. So much better. Before, the bonus round was just for lives and to save, the boxes were not mandatory. However, this time they add to the total number of boxes at the end. So if you are going for the gems, which do return, bonus rounds must be completed. Luckily, since this game is so much easier, even the bonus rounds are. They still can be good for giving you lives.
In the first Crash Bandicoot game, it felt like they threw lives at you, maybe because the devs knew it was just a really hard game and this is just like a compensation. In Crash 2 though, I never felt like I ever game overed at all, or lost that many lives. And thus, you notice you don't really actually get a ton of lives, but you don't really need them. You could end up playing the game, being really good at it, and only have about 50 or so lives, but you're hardly ever going to lose those lives, even if you're someone who's brand new to the game. It is a testament to the massive improvement that the game is so much more fair. You don't have to worry about that so much. Sure, you might die every now and again, but compared to the first game, it's absolutely night and day.
In Crash 1, your goal was just to make it to the end of the level, but in Crash 2, you are tasked with collecting the crystals. They are usually about halfway in the level, and you won't be able to proceed in the next warp room without collecting all of the 5 crystals. Once you've beat the stages, collect the crystals, you are confronted by Cortex before a boss fight, then heading to the next warp room. Crash, my boy, you have done amazing so far. I always believed in you. But no need to get cocky now. There's an enemy you have to face, and it is YouTube. But don't worry, I know what to do to defeat it. Simply use the platform and hit that red button there, that subscribe button, and you'll defeat YouTube no problem. Remember, I'm counting on you. I want to talk about the levels as I kinda glossed over them with Crash 1. In the first game, you travel through 3 islands, and each island represents the type of levels you will go through. The first island has jungle levels, tiki ruins, nature, rivers. The second has more focused on temple-like levels, and the third island is mostly based around factory mechanical levels. Crash 2 has variety as well, but just like Crash 1, there's a few variations of the same sort of level. Just like the first, you have your jungle stages, but now we have the introduction to snow levels. Ice physics, oh no! They aren't the best, but not the worst. It is my favourite type of level, so I might be biased, but I do enjoy them. Chase levels returns here, very similar to the first game, but you have more obstacles in your way, and sometimes you have speed boosts. The second warp room is more snow themed, so we have slightly more snow levels here, including the return of animal riding. This time with an adorable baby polar bear, which Crash just does this to, and gives you lives. And then its mum chases you in this level. Good times. They are pretty fun, and you'll see a few of these. They are at different times of the day, which is really cool. We've got honestly the nicest looking sewers in video games. Very fun too. These nighttime ruin levels gives me more of a Crash 1 vibe, a lot more focused on precise jumps. We do have this unique gimmick to these forest levels, when Crash can press the square button on certain red floors to burrow underground. You'll need to do this to avoid obstacles, including the bees. You do get a funny death animation though. That's something I can quickly mention. Crash 1 mostly had one death animation. Crash 2 is where they have a bunch of different ones depending on how he loses a life. I wouldn't recommend you die per se to see them, but it does add to the comedic part of his character. Again, he's just like a cartoon, and I love that. Space, the final frontier, last warp room. Before Cortex, it's mostly themed around space, even including a level where you fly around in a jetpack. Now listen, I like this idea. I thought when I was a kid it was really cool, but the execution, even now, can still be better. I just think the controls really aren't the best, and sadly, they never tried doing this again outside of the remake. All in all, despite repeated level types, there's still some good variety, and the levels look gorgeous on the PS1.
Alright, let's talk about the characters. We've got old foes, old characters returning. We've got new ones, new foes. Crash's sister? Hold on. Where did Torna go? Let's address that first, shall we?
In the first game, Crash had a girlfriend, another bandicoot named Torna, and the goal was to rescue her from Cortex. In the end, it's left somewhat ambiguous what happened to them. They just ride the blimp into the sunset. Then we get into Crash 2, and she's nowhere to be found. Instead, a different bandicoot by the name of Coco is here, and this is Crash's sister. Now, Coco was introduced in Crash 2, she wasn't in Crash 1, she wasn't even a thing. She has basically replaced Torna entirely, well, at least at this point. The reason being was because there was backlash with her design, so Naughty Dog was told to remove her for the next game. So to put it simply, Torna was a little too risque for a supposedly kids game, so they gave Crash a younger sibling and have her be very tech savvy instead.
It's funny because since Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time came out, they tried to, in-game, explain why Coco wasn't really a thing in Crash Bandicoot 1, or why we didn't see her. Yet, even though it is a pretty good explanation, I'll give them that, we know what the real reason was. She wasn't even created then. Torna was a thing, and then Coco literally replaced her. Even though they did bring back Torna later on, that was 100% the goal. Torna had to go. Here comes Coco, the little sister.
They didn't try to explain Torna not coming back in the games, and she only came back in spin-offs, but I do understand why they removed her. In the remake, they toned her down, and they did bring her back for the remake of Crash Team Racing. Of course, we also have the new one in Crash 4 with a completely different design, because while If you've played Crash 4, you'll know why. I'm all for bringing her back if they do a new Crash game or a spin-off game. She just needs to have a role other than Crash's girlfriend. Plus, I think that ship has sailed anyway. Coco isn't the only new character. Some new foes challenge Crash, as well as a familiar one in Ripperoo, the only boss that returns from Crash 1, since you don't fight Embryo. If you were a fan of any of the characters, they sadly aren't here. We now have the Komodo Bros as the second boss, throwing knives and spinning at you. Cortex has a new creation in Tiny Tiger as the third boss. He chases you down, and the only way to defeat him is to trick him into jumping into a pit. The best fight of the entire game has to be Engine, Cortex's new assistant. You've got to throw Wumpa Fruit at the vulnerable parts of his mech as he shoots missiles at you. Then follows up with a big old laser that destroys the platform, but it will come back. Of course, it ends with another confrontation with Cortex, where you just chase him down in the jetpack, hitting him before he escapes. The boss fights in this game are a bit better, Engine of course being the highlight. Cortex, however, being pretty disappointing one this time around, since he just flies away. Especially being the final boss, and all he does is flee? It's a pretty big downgrade from the first game.
I do appreciate that Ripperoo's boss fight is different enough, and it is less finicky compared to the first game, so it's overall just a better boss fight. I also enjoy the fact that he has a top hat, glasses, he's reading a book, like studying something, and he also has like a little stick, like he's a gentleman, and he bounces on the stick, and that's basically the boss fight. He just summons TNTs and Nitro. It's pretty cool. Saying this though, I don't think the cast this time is as strong as the first game. The first game, it was clearly like a very sort of cartoony, somewhat light-hearted tone. With Crash 2, it felt like it's going for a little bit more of a serious tone, not super serious, but a bit more mysterious and menacing. You know, you can't trust Cortex, right? What's going on here? And even like the characters, right? It just kind of feels like there's a bit more of a, oh no, like this is serious. Someone's gonna destroy the planet, Cortex or something like that, I don't know. But it's just a completely different tone. That being said, I do like that at the beginning of the game, when Cortex essentially asks Crash to bring me the crystal. If you go into the stage but just don't get the crystal, he will talk to you again, basically saying, no Crash, you didn't get the crystals, go back in there. And if you keep just ignoring the crystal and keep coming out, he keeps getting increasingly annoyed to the point where he's just like, you know what, I give up.
Okay, there's one thing I forgot to mention. This is editing Jay into the future. But there is something with this game that they introduced that you could say is part of this game's charm. It's the Crash dance. How could I forget that? This dance became incredibly iconic that it was even in, I believe, a Japanese commercial. And this has been brought back several times. Dude, you can even do it in Astrobot, and it is amazing. When you do beat Cortex, you get an end cutscene where Coco tells Crash that Cortex's space station is still up there, meaning the mind control device could still be used. That's where the gems come in. The first time you get a gem, you will get a transmission from Dr. Embryo, who tells you if the fate of the world is truly your concern, gather the gems, and not the crystals, so he can destroy Cortex's vortex. True to his word, he does. Just like Crash 1, the gems make a return. Same thing, break all boxes, hope you haven't missed one, and you will be rewarded with a gem. However, there's now different ways to get gems as well as the box ones. Sometimes a level will have 2 gems to collect. One will require a secret or some sort of challenge to get it. This can range from different pathways, timers, secret parts of the level, and one of my personal favourites, secret levels. And then there's the first coloured gem in the first stage, which can easily be missed because there's only one hint. If you've gotten the box gem, then beat the stage again, a box tally will be there, but it says 0. Even that in itself can be a bit confusing, but it's trying to say don't get any boxes and the gem will appear. And it's the only time they do something like that. A lot of these additional gems were behind these death fruits introduced in this game. If you manage to survive the stage up until the skull platform, you will be taken to another part of the level that may have boxes and or gem at the end. These areas are supposed to be challenges to test your platforming skills. I personally enjoy these. You do sadly have the same thing in Crash 1 where backtracking may be required. Sometimes in the stage itself, they make you go backwards, which in a Crash game is kinda rough because of the fixed camera. And then there's the secret levels, which are mandatory for 100%. They don't have crystals, but they do have gems. To access the hidden 6th warp room, you have to find a teleport spot in certain levels. Some you might discover by accident, like going a different path in the sewer level, or for whatever reason backtrack to Polar in this chase level. Then there's random snow platforms at the end of this stage. Oh, it's a secret warp spot, and now you're in the secret warp room. Now you need to find all secret exits to unlock all levels in the warp room. Some of them are brand new levels, and some of them are just different entrances to a previous level taking you to an undiscovered path that leads you to a gem you could not get before.
Thanks to this game, I adore finding secrets and like Easter eggs in video games. The wonders of finding this stuff when you are a kid. It's like going on your own little adventure and you're like, what's this? What's that? Finding treasure. What's this secret? I didn't know I could do that. Your curiosity gets piqued. You know, why is there this lone flower enemy on this platform surrounded by other enemies, but it's just on this random platform that you don't really see throughout the entire game? It's only time it does this and you think, well, why is that there? What happens if I belly flop? Oh, very nice. There are even secrets within the level that don't necessarily take you to a secret level, but will take you to another part of the level that you didn't think was even there. Now, I don't know about you, but if you see a bottomless pit, normally you probably wouldn't jump into it, right? But what if there was a bottomless pit that you see something fall into it, like this giant bear, and you've been seeing boulders falling down very similar pits? Would you think to jump down it? Because I wouldn't. Yeah, this isn't a bottomless pit, at least specifically not here. The only hint, I believe, is that part of the bridge doesn't break, and that's supposed to be your hint that, hey, you can just run to the edge, jump it. I don't know, it's very obscure, and I always feel like it was very obscure. I mean, if anyone actually knows what the proper hint was for that, let me know in the comments. But despite that, I loved it. I loved finding secrets. I love discovering this sort of stuff. It just feels so wonderful as a kid to have all this stuff, man. And every time I play this game, it is such a joy to complete 100%. Compared to Crash Bandicoot 1, Crash Bandicoot 1 is very, very hard, and I will do it. But Crash Bandicoot 2 is just a joy from start to finish. I almost always get everything in the game.
Once you do get all the gems, Embryo tells you to join him on his satellite ray, and we use the power to destroy the Cortex Vortex, setting in motion the next game. As the first thing you see in Crash Warped is the destroyed space station, so technically the 100% ending is the true ending. I like the soundtrack in Crash 1, but I love the soundtrack in Crash 2. There's just something about it that makes me go back and listen to it outside of the game. It's incredibly catchy, fits the game, leaving me with a big old smile on my face. Here are some of my favorites. They absolutely nailed the music in this game.
So what do I think about Crash Bandicoot 2 in 2025, going back to it now? Well, let's take my bias aside. There's been a ton of 3D platformers, different 3D platformers since that game. The big one at the moment, I suppose, is Astro Bot, the one the most well known. That won actually Game of the Year 2024. That was a surprise. But like Crash Bandicoot 2 is such an improvement. I keep saying this, but it really is, in my opinion, a better game than Crash Bandicoot 1, right? Okay, maybe I would argue myself that a little bit of that charm is sort of changed / kind of gone, in kind of a different feel, but I love practically almost everything about Crash Bandicoot 2, really. And you'd think it'd be my favorite. It's not, but it's definitely up there. I can see why, even to this day, I go back to it, and why so many people go back to it, and why this is considered a lot of fans' favorites. It's over 2 or it's free. I can definitely see it. This game changed so much that I was even more excited for the next game. And the next game is my favorite, Crash Bandicoot Warped.
The final game in the trilogy is up next, but I did not forget the bonus, which some of you probably already guessed what it is. My personal favorite, Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped. So be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you there.